Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to my recap and review of Outlander Season 8, Episode 3. Alright everybody, so thank you so much for being here, and I'm sorry for the bit of disarray that is going on in this recap. My face is acting up, my head had been acting up, so I'm filming this a little later than I wanted to, and I am a bit frazzled, okay? But the show must go on, and I want to get these recaps filmed. I don't want to get behind on any. I want to get the content to you guys. And I mean, my head's not hurting today. I wouldn't film if I had a headache. But yesterday is when I had wanted to film, and I had a migraine, and then the longer that I wait to film these, the harder it is for me to do these recaps. I take really good notes, but one of the medications that I'm on, it can cause my brain to fog a little bit. I've talked about that before in my main channel, and so I get a little bit of brain fog. And so if I don't get these filmed like pretty quickly, it gets harder and harder to do it. So we just got to go forward with it. Part of it with this one too is that, oh man, there are just finding the direct scenes for everything is getting to be a bit of a chore right now as well. So I'm going to do as best as I can. But you know, I'm more than welcome for some corrections if I don't hit on it. I'm going to hit on actually in the comparison part, just a few things that I think are the most important with this one, just to kind of maybe keep it a bit more concise and about how I see them going, what I think are the biggest divergences that they're making. Because there was really just like two things I found to be kind of the biggest changes they were making. And the rest were just more all, you know, we're condensing the story, we're moving things along. Some changes being made are just because there's some characters who aren't in this show now, you know, so they're having to change those storylines. But overall, I'm still very engaged in it. And this episode particularly, though, did have at least two scenes particularly that are really direct from the book, like a big chunks of dialogue direct from the book that had me absolutely giddy. There are some meaty scenes that I just adored. So as always, for my format of these is I'm going to do a recap of the show. I took notes while I was going through it. So I'm going to do a little recap. I know I have some people who live overseas or in other countries who they tell me in the comments that they actually get their recaps of the show from me because they're not able to watch the show until many months later, which bless you, A, for not pirating the show, and B, for trusting me to recap accurately for you. And then I know some of you, who just don't even watch the show anymore, who just prefer my recaps. And again, I say bless you. Thank you so much. So we're going to do our recap. Then I will do the comparison part of it, talk about where I think they're changing it. And then I will give you a rating of the episode, which is based on both how well I think they're doing in interpreting the story and how much I'm enjoying it. Because that is also important. Because I just think it's a damn good TV show as well. So here we go. Episode 3. Which I'm not even pretending to pronounce the title. You'll notice I didn't say it at the beginning, and I'm not trying to say it now. So, with this one, we don't open with a cold open. We started with the intro song for this one. And we jump into Fanny and Bree are at the trading post. And we have Fanny looking at some combs and things. And Bree is telling her, why don't you pick out something that you like? I'm going to go and pay for something and I'll come back. And in the meantime, while she's standing there, a creepy man comes and hits on her. And tries to get her to come home with him. Which, what a fucking creep. We're supposed to be creeped by him. And part of it is so that we don't feel bad about what's going to happen to this man later. And I gotta tell you, I don't feel bad for what's going to happen to him later, even though it has bigger implications for the world as a whole. Yep, don't feel bad for this guy at all. And I doubt many of you did either. But when Bree comes back over, we have Fanny explaining that this is one of the officers from the brothel. And so maybe he had recognized her from there or something like that. And that is also a hint to the fact that, like, this is a British officer, right? Because those are who was frequenting the brothels that Jane and Fanny were staying at. Okay, then we will jump into a through line that will be for a good portion of this season or series, I'm sure. We have J and C, sorry, that's always what I put in my notes. We have Jamie and Claire fighting over a letter from Lord John. So Claire had received a letter from John that is asking for Bree to visit and actually paint a portrait of his cousin-in-law or whatever, and or niece and nephew. So of Amaranthus and Trevor, because, I know we so have forgotten it, but Bree is an artist. We've only seen her do it a few times in the show. You'll maybe recall she had, drawn the picture of Roger to help us find him, but she had also done some portraits for Jocasta when she lived there. But she is an artist, which I do think is beautiful. We just don't talk about it very much. So it felt very jarring to have him be requesting her to do that. But that is something that John would know about her, not only from letters between them, but when he met her at River Run, that is what she was doing when she was there, when she was pregnant with Jem. And of course we have them fighting about it, and Jamie is like, no, she will absolutely not go to see him. And she's like, well, you can't really tell her no. And he's like, yes, I can. And Bree's like, or Claire is just kind of like, why are you throwing such a fit? And he said, I'm a jealous man. And she's like, why are you bringing this back up in my face? And so they're kind of going back and forth about it. And I'll be honest with you, I see both of their sides about this fight. We'll get into the fight more in detail, and I will later on, yes, talk about this fight directly. But I do also love when they bicker like this a little bit, because it is kind of, it's not a normal married person fight. This is a very over the top type of issue that's gotten between them. But I just love whenever we see them be very human. This is a very human kind of fight, jealousy to have. And whether or not Jamie has a right to continually hold this over her head, we will get into it another time. But I love seeing his human side quite a bit. I do love that about him so much. But yeah, he's a beautiful man. But anyway, she calls him a pig-headed Scot, and he walks out. So then we have sweet Fanny. Aww. Because something had come up about William in the fight. And so we have Fanny then coming out around the corner, and she is scared that because the fight was about William, if Jamie is mad at William, that they won't want to keep her there because they only did it as a favor to William. And Claire is like, no. We may have met you because of William, but when we decide to keep you, that doesn't have anything to do with William anymore. We want you to be here. Now, of course, Claire doesn't go into the depths of it, that they suspect that you're her granddaughter as well. They wouldn't be getting rid of you anyway. That's a whole other thing that the show, it can't decide whether to shit or get off the pot about. Yes, I'm using that term because that's how I feel about that storyline. I have made myself clear on it. But also, they just would never do that because that is not who Jamie and Claire are. They would never do that. Okay, so now we go to Philly, and we have, that is how I will always have Philadelphia marked as in my notes. Because again, I'm taking notes while I'm watching it, and I have to use abbreviations for everything so that I can take lots of notes very quickly and not break up the story by having to pause all the time and make notes. It's quite the thing. But we go back to Philadelphia, and we have William having returned saying Ben's not dead. And LJG said this could have been a mix-up. They could have buried him in the wrong grave. There could be a grave somewhere under this guy's name. That is where Ben is buried. And basically he's pointing out to him, LJG is pointing out to him that, maybe he just lost the tin soldier. You're basing all of this on that. Now, to be fair to William, he's not completely basing all of it just on the tin soldier, but he is following his gut, which is a Frasier trait that he has. So there's that. But John is pointing out facts, and maybe he just doesn't want to hear these facts to him. I don't think there's anything wrong with John being like, dude, he probably died in this. And also the point of well, if he didn't, he doesn't say this, but if he didn't die, then where is he? Right? Because that's the unanswered other half of this question is, if Ben's not dead, wherefore art thou, Ben, then, right? Who has a wife and child, right? So There is a soiree that is going to have Ben's commanding officer be there, and LJG is like, well, you could attend this event, and he's like, well, you just want to get me back into society, and he's like, so sue me, I'm your dad, and I want you meeting people, and it would kill two birds with one stone, and so he begrudgingly is like, okay, fine, sure, I'll think about it. Then we go back to the ridge and we have Claire and Bree. I think they're cooking together. I didn't write down what they were doing together, but they're together working on something, and Claire is sharing about Lord John's letter, and she's like, why didn't Lord John just write to Papa? And Bree finds it quite hilarious that what happened. You know, Claire gives her the lowdown of like, I might have married John to keep you safe, and Bree's like, oh, well, that makes sense. Why is he so mad? And she's like, well, I might have slept with him when we were drunk. Now, Bree knows that John prefers men, and is like, what? Because to her, this is kind of like, huh? And she's like, we were both very drunk and missing your father. And she's like, okay. She's like, do not let your dad see you laugh about this, okay? She's really upset. And Bree's like, I got it. Okay, then we go to Cunningham gets a visit from Jamie at the trading post. And now this is Jamie kind of standing on business about these men having made Fanny uncomfortable, which I love when the show does every once in a while let us be smart enough on our own about something, because that is what you can assume then, is that Bree did talk to her dad about how these men made Fanny uncomfortable, because I doubt Fanny would have said anything. She very much doesn't want to scoop the waves. And Bree obviously told Jamie about it, and Jamie doesn't waste any time. He goes to see Cunningham and is like, A, why were there soldiers on my ridge? B, they made my adopted daughter uncomfortable here, and make sure they don't come back. And Cunningham is his very, suave self. He says, they brought me back my son's, some of my son's stuff. They had, he has all these excuses, all these reasons, and Jamie, you can tell, still wants to think the best of him. I'll be honest, I think he mostly just doesn't want to deal with the implications of what it means if he isn't. But he also, doesn't want to believe probably a lot of the stuff he's reading about Frank, even though each episode now we're seeing more and more of the stuff that Frank has put in the Soul of a Rebel come true, right? And whether he doesn't know what to feel about Frank or not, he is a historian, and it seems like these things are coming to pass. Whether Cunningham was mentioned in this book or not, these other people are mentioned and things are starting to line up. So I just want to put that out there, even though we'll get more confirmation of that coming up. He is, Cunningham just seems very likable, and that is very book accurate in my opinion. I think this version of Cunningham is even more smooth and suave, in my opinion, than the book accurate version. But I've got to tell you guys again, I really like this actor, and I think he's doing a great job. And I think he doesn't have that kind of I bring people to me through fear. He very much feels like an opposing character to Jamie, who is charismatic and easily can make people follow him. And Jamie's right to be wary of him, because Jamie was gone for a very long time, as will be brought up to him later. Okay, now we go back to Philadelphia, and we have Amaranthus walking in on William without his shirt on, and she doesn't make any effort to quickly run away. But he's getting dressed for the soiree, and she had made a waistcoat for Ben that has beetles and butterflies on it, because her father apparently was a naturalist. She's actually named after some kind of a milkweed or of something, I guess is what she's named after. And so there's this beautiful waistcoat that she's made, and she offers it to William, has him try it on for her. There's definitely some flirty vibes going on, and we will get back to that. But there's long, lingering looks happening, and she dresses him basically for this soiree. Then we go back to the ridge, and we have a very long scene coming up here, okay? So we go back to the ridge, and first we have a scene with Bree and Roger, and they're talking about how they want to take up LJG on the offer to do this portrait because they want to arm the Ridge in some aspects. They want to take the warnings of Frank seriously and start to arm the Ridge in certain ways. Jamie thinks this is super dangerous. There's still other parts that are very militarized. How are you going to do this without getting in trouble? And she's like, well, here's the thing. Lord John Grey has basically given us a pass. Like, he's written this letter for me to be able to go into the city as his guest. And that's as good as we're going to get. That is basically a golden ticket in and out, right? Jamie doesn't want to accept that because he's stubborn. Also, he doesn't want his children to be in danger, but mostly he's doing it out of hatred towards John right now. And also, I think a bit of pig-headedness and wanting to put his head in the sand that he just does not want his family involved in this anymore, which I can understand. The man has been through constant war, basically, for how many years at this point? He would just like to chill on his ridge and be a farmer, for goodness sakes. That is what the man wants. He wants to be a laird and a farmer and not deal with it. Is going to morph into a bigger fight between the two of them. So we now leave and have them going into their bedroom, and we have Jamie being very pig-headed, and we have this fight about truth and honesty between them. And Jamie says that he doesn't forgive her, and she's like, I thought you forgave me. And he says that he does, and she's still mad and is like, you obviously don't. How can you love someone and not forgive them? And I wrote a lot of like, this is married people problems right now. And he's like, are you bringing other people? Or he says something about like, I'm thinking of other people when we're in our bed. Or are you thinking about other people when you're in our bed? And she says, leave that to me. And they end up having a intimate scene together. After, like I said, they hash out all this. I'm not doing all the quotes back to back when I do this. We're going to discuss that scene in my comparison part. And I have the holy text here for us to discuss. But they go back and forth. They end up having sex. They reconnect. That is something that has been true between these two. These 30 years of marriage plus that they've had. And it's beautiful to see it here. And when they get to the end of this, says, have we got that out of our system now? And he kind of grunts a little bit, and she says, did I break the skin? And he says, you do that every time you touch me. Very beautiful scene. Then we're still at the Ridge, but it's now the next morning. How did this play out? I should have wrote this note a little better because this was a good one. I think he asked something about like, are you thinking about, oh shoot, I should have written this quote down. See, I'm sorry you guys, this is what happens when I have to wait too many days to film it. But it's something about her 3 husbands. It's a joke about, are you thinking about your 3rd, 1st, or 2nd husband? And she says something about like, well, it's only the 2nd one that I love. And Jamie asks, how spiteful do you think Frank is? Do you think he is torturing you with the truth of this book that I'll die? And they have some more discussion about that back and forth, which it really is like how much we believe this book is all about what we know of Frank, how angry we are, how angry he truly was about this. What do we know of him? And I think this is so hard because I don't want to go into this too much in this part of it. I should save it for the comparison part, but it is difficult because I always wonder a little bit how much Diana ever, like how angry she did mean Frank to be. Because did she always plan that he was writing this book is what I wonder. Because the last we saw Frank like on page was in book 2, right? Well, and a bit in 3 when we're having memories of him and stuff. But when we get to, at this point, it's like, well, what kind of man was he? Because in some aspects, all he did was prepare his daughter to live in this time. But then would he have been cruel to Claire about it? Like, I don't know. Some days I think better of Frank than others. But Claire says, I think it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. And there's some voiceover from Frank that says, you know that it's real. Okay, now we go back to Philadelphia. And boy, things are getting spicy here. So we have William go to the soiree. He's questioning Ben's commander, and he ends up getting a job request to go to what is he supposed to do? I think he's supposed to he's supposed to answer questions about some of the prison conditions or something like that, about how the camp conditions were, since he had just recently visited one. And the commander ends up spilling the beans a bit about the fact that, this is almost like a father like son thing. Your father actually worked at a prison once, and apparently Willie did not know that his father worked at Ardsmuir in Scotland, although this should click something into place for Willie that's like, that's probably where my father met my biological father at some point. And I'm sure there'll be another conversation about that, but that little tidbit gets dropped in William's lap. Okay, then we switch back to the Ridge, and we have an Agnes Whitaker, this young black girl. She looks to be maybe like a teenager in the show. Come up upon Claire, who's like working in her garden plot, and say that her mother needs help. And so Claire comes down the hill, and she finds a woman in a cart, a black woman who is heavily pregnant. There's also another woman with her. So there's 3 women, one of them being the pregnant woman. Her name is Susanna, and we bring her inside, and we discover that she is pregnant with twins. Okay, so we leave them there for a moment. Then we go back to Philadelphia, and now it's time for the meal. And this is, as I said, where things get a bit spicy. So it appears that this scene is like kind of taking place right after the one we like just saw, because when that one was happening, the one where William is getting this job offer or like this request from that guy, they're being called into the meal. Now we're entering into the meal. Lord John is already sitting down, and there's a seat next to him. William like goes towards that seat, and then someone sits down next to John, and William's like, oh dang, and goes to sit somewhere else. And the person who sat down next to John is Perseverance. All right, his good old step bro and ex-lover Perseverance. Okay, and he puts his hand in a very inappropriate place. And I will say, Lord John, not good at being subtle, okay? Because the man about spilled his drink in his lap when the guy put his hand on his thigh. And I'm like, sir, you were supposed to be a bit more subtle with your, gayness than that. Like, jeez, be a little more chill. But Perseverance is asking for Fergus Fraser, or Claudel Fraser, right? But that's Fergus. And saying that he's been asking to meet with him, and he hasn't been able to meet up with him. And he says he's looking for an introduction, and LJG is saying, why do you think that I would be able to do it? And he's like, come on, I know you know him. Like, don't play around. And Lord John Grey agrees if Perseverance will look into what has happened with Richardson. And I'll be honest, I can't remember why at this moment he wants to know what's up with him. I think he just wants to know because that dude is bad news, and we like want to know where he is and everything. I mean, I'm sure we'll come back to it, so I'm not worried about that. Because I'm pretty sure Richardson is... Nope, I don't. I'm not going to get stuff right now. We'll figure that out on a different day. We're getting through this one. Okay, now we go back to the Ridge, and we have Aaron Whitaker arrive, who is the husband, and he wants to leave. He is worried about, because him and his family are freed, and is worried about what trouble they might get into if they have their babies there. And again, we'll come back to this whole situation in the comparison, because I don't know what the show is doing with this. This is not book accurate at all. I don't know what's going on. But basically, like, Jamie and Claire are like, well, you don't got to worry about that here. You're going to be safe. But the babies are trying to be born, and, like, your wife is going to die if you leave with her. Okay, then we go back to Philadelphia, and William delivers Ben's belongings that he got from his visit, which, again, he didn't find the toy soldier, but he got his clothes his uniform from where he went. And he gives this to Amaranthus. She seems to think it's a bit odd that he's giving it to her, I guess. But he goes with her and goes to put it in a drawer. And when she opens the drawer, the tin soldier is inside. So that is a moment of like, oh, and Amaranthus says that he left it for Trevor, which honestly, that totally makes sense. You know, he knew that Trevor was going to be born and he wanted his son to have this little tin soldier. But now, if Willie is going off thinking Ben is alive solely because the tin soldier wasn't in with his clothes, which obviously, yes, there was also someone else buried in the grave, so he has other reasons at this point why he's suspicious. But a big one of them is he was like, well, the tin soldier wasn't there, so he must not be dead. That might be something that is also shaking his confidence. So he sees the tin soldier in the grave. Then they end up going for a walk. There's some talk, there's some more flirting, and they end up kissing. Okay, so he has now kissed Amaranthus. All right, now we go to the Ridge. All right, we go back to the Ridge, and things are going to get pretty intense here. We have one baby be born. It's a baby boy. The baby boy is all right. The second baby is struggling. Claire gets the baby out. The baby is not breathing. She does CPR on the baby. The baby is dead. Now there's this whole sequence. There's flashbacks to Paris. There is like a voiceover from Master Raymond talking about the blue colors, talking about the healing things and the blue light and everything. And Claire just will not give up. She's not giving up, and the baby is alive. Okay? So we're supposed to believe that she used some magic to make this happen. Okay? Then we have handed the baby over. All right. Now we skip forward a little bit into the night, and Claire and Jamie are talking about this. And Claire describes how Raymond saved her when she was in Paris, and how she was sure that she was dead. And Raymond, you know, like made her think of Jamie, how there was a blue light, how there was this feeling, and that he saved her. There was a little extra something. And so Jamie says he's seen her do miracles, and she said, this is something different. This wasn't just using medical. This was something extra. And she says, maybe Raymond did that and saved Faith. But as always, it comes back to this. Jamie is saying, why? And then where? Like, these are the questions we come back to him. So now she ends up asking him, she takes off her head covering and asks if my hair is whiter, because there was always that saying from, I will not butcher her name, but from the native wise woman way back in season 4, who said she would come into her full power when her hair was fully white. And she is getting more white streaks in her hair, specifically one that got much whiter after tonight, because yes, she's getting older as well, but one particular streak has gotten much whiter. Okay, now it's the next morning, and Fanny and Jamie go for a walk, and he takes her to a cairn that he had built. And this is a cairn we've actually seen other members lay stones on as well and say a prayer for different people. And he tells her that anytime she wants to talk to Jane, she can come and lay a stone here and say a prayer. And this is her home now as well, which is very sweet. But then we hear some guns go off, and we hear some shooting, and we find Benjamin Cleveland, who has killed 2 men, and they had a wagon full of guns. All right, and these 2 men, who Fanny very uncomfortably points out that these were the 2 men that had hassled her at the trading post, meaning they were the 2 men that Jamie had told Cunningham, make sure they don't come back around here no more. And Cunningham had said, no, you won't see them again, never. Jamie checks the guy's boot and finds a letter, which he doesn't let Benjamin Cleveland see. Cleveland is like, what'd you find? He is like, take this off of my land, get out of here. And he's like, we're keeping the guns though, peace out. So that's just great. You know, we're just arming this lunatic more. Love that. But Jamie is now real wound up about this, okay? Getting real damn wound up about this, okay? So, he goes to confront, Cunningham. He locks the door behind him. And the thing is like, this letter seems to be a bit gibberish. Now, this is another thing that I love that the show isn't making like, duh, we're going to connect all the dots for you. Jamie was a spy before. He did secret messages. He's not a dummy. He also has been a, commander in the army, so he knows about hidden messages and all these things. And it's all about if you can find the key and how it works. And so he happens to see a pistol that has not been on the wall before, who he had said it was my son's gun. And he ends up finding literally, it was a bit obvious that it was right there. He finds a key, literally, which is a piece of paper that you lay over the top of it. And it is literally a secret message from Patrick Ferguson. And it is asking Cunningham to raise a militia. And Jamie is like, I thought you retired. That was the whole thing of this. Like, we can live here in peace. Like, just let all that nonsense stay out of it. Well, Cunningham, being so damn self-righteous and also believing that he was spared, he has his holy war that he believes he's going for. He says, I intended to retire, but I've been called back up. And so he's raising a loyalist militia on Fraser's Ridge. And Jamie says, speak plainly, sir, for I cannot guess your meaning. And Cunningham has the balls on him, okay, the cojones, to say, we both wish this war to end soon. And what better way to do that than to be on the side of the king, because that's going to be the winning side. And he fucking, I wrote this down, he fucking pitches Jamie Fraser to switch back to the loyalist side, okay, to his face, on his ridge. The absolute balls on this man, which, again, we believe in a certain way, because this man thinks he can't die. So he's just going to be hell for leather, brave as can be, with recruiting, with fighting, with whatever. He thinks that his side is winning. But I hate to tell you, sir, just because you yourself might not be able to die doesn't mean everyone else is just going to roll over, and go kaput for you, But Jamie is basically just like, no way in hell. So as he's riding away from there, we get more voiceover from Frank that says, I told you, Fraser, it's coming. Each day brings you closer to King's Mountain and closer to your history. And that rounds us out of that episode, which was just jam-packed full of stuff. So that is our recap here. Getting into the comparison. Like I said, this is where much for me going through this, finding every scene like I normally do. So I'm just going to tell you some of the things that are missing and some of the things that I think are the best. And I'm going to go over one of the scenes that's my favorite to go over. So, a couple of things we're missing. As I've mentioned, we're not having any of the stuff that is Jenny. We don't have any of the Jenny, and there's a journey that Jenny and Ian and Rachel go on that we haven't seen that happen. And obviously we won't have Jenny go on it anyway. I wonder if there will be the journey that Ian will go on that has to do with recruiting the natives. I think we will, based on a trailer that I've seen, to get Ian some closure with his first wife. I think we will get that, but that is something we're not seeing. We are not seeing any of Denzel and Dottie, but the fighting between those two is like exactly right. Like that scene of them fighting about, and damn William, exactly it. Fanny being worried about it, exactly it. Okay, here's what I wanted to read some that was exactly right, because I love when they do that. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the Jamie and Claire fight is the part that I wanted to read exactly, because I wish I could give you a Sam Heughan accent. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Here. I could have lied, you know. No, you couldn't. You couldn't lie to anybody, Sassenach, let alone me. And given that his lordship had already told the truth, you wouldn't have been sure it was the truth, I said. Given that both parties told me about that fight, I could have told you John was talking out his backside because he wanted to annoy you, and you would have believed me. You could choose your words with a bit more care, Sassenach, he said. I did not want to hear anything about his lordship's backside. Do you think I would have believed you, though? I never believe anything you tell me that I haven't seen with my own eyes. Now who's being annoying? That was rude of him. And you would have believed me because you would have wanted to. And don't tell me otherwise, because I won't believe that. He made a huh sound under his breath. We were leaning back against the paddock rails, and the smell of jasmine, tomatoes, and human excrement had been replaced with the sweeter odor of manure and the slow, heavy exhalations of the forest. Why didn't you lie then, he said, if you thought I'd believe it? Because I promised you honesty a long time ago, and if honesty turns out to be a double-edged sword, I think the wounds are usually worth it. Did Frank think that? You'd have to ask him that, I said, very precisely. This is about you and me, and his lordship. I lost the temper I'd been holding. What the bloody hell do you want me to say? That I wish I hadn't slept with John? Do ye? Actually, I said through gritted teeth, given the situation, or what I thought the situation was. He was no more than a tall shape against the night, but I saw him turn sharply. If you say no, Sassenach, I may do something I'll regret, so do not say it, What's wrong with you? You forgave me. So you said. No, I didn't. I said I loved you forever, and I will, but you cannot love someone if you won't bloody forgive them. I forgive you, he said. How fucking dare you, I shouted, turning on him with clenched fists. What's wrong with you? He made to grab my arm, but I jerked away from him. First you're angry because I did not say I forgave ye, and now you're outraged because I did. Because I didn't do anything wrong to start with, you fat-headed arsehole, and you know it. How dare you try to forgive me for something I didn't do? You did do it. I didn't. You think I was unfaithful to you, and I bloody wasn't. So, yeah, I just love that, discussion that they have here, because it is true. It feels uncomfortable because it feels so soon. It feels like, Claire, why are you fucking this guy when Jamie's only been dead this long or whatever? But let's be real. Dead is dead, and pain is pain, and being drunk and needing comfort is what it is, right? And I think it still would have felt like a betrayal whether or not the actual, I'm sorry to be crude, the actual intercourse happened. The seeking the comfort and being intimate in that way is, I think, what really hurts and what's really hard, right? But that is how Claire was grieving it, you know? And it's uncomfortable and it's awful. And yet at the same time, it was beautiful in its own way. And it shouldn't have kept happening, and it shouldn't have kept being a thing, and it wouldn't have, you know? If those two had stayed married always, I don't see them having continued to have sex. I think Claire probably would have went back to taking care of herself. I think she would have found pleasure in her memories of her love of Jamie and taking herself in hand when she needed to. I don't think that would have been an ongoing thing with John. And I think Jamie's just hurt because of who it is, and also because for him, there just isn't another person who loves Claire the way that he does, that he would have fucked them in grief. You know what I mean? Like, there just isn't anyone. Like, the time that he kind of fucked someone in grief, they weren't both, sorry, I'll stop saying the F-bomb. They weren't both effing Claire. They were both effing their loved one, right? Like, think back when he had sex with Mary McNabb. She wasn't having sex with him. She was having sex with her lost love, and he was having sex with Claire. So it's not the same thing, you know, to Jamie, and even not to us either, right? Whereas when Claire and John had sex that night, they were very specifically dreaming of Jamie, and they were both specifically fucking Jamie when they did that. And that is different, and that is a grief that I think we understand, and that Jamie never could, because he would never do that. But that doesn't mean that it's completely wrong. And if Jamie had truly, truly been dead, I think that type of grief and that type of comfort, it's not how I would see myself seeking comfort, but I don't think that Claire is wrong. And Claire is right to say, I didn't do anything wrong. There was not a hint, not a prayer that she could have believed they were still alive. They had done their due diligence, and they were grieving. And people can say, oh, it was too soon, oh, it was this or whatever, but dead is dead. If your husband is dead, whether he's been dead a week or dead 10 years, he still would have been dead, right? Like, in her heart, we weren't just waiting for a finish line to be crossed for him to all of a sudden be back alive. And so, oh, you better get this fucking in before you find out he's alive still. You know what I mean? But to Jamie, it's just, he's a jealous guy. And so for him to know that there was someone else who, I don't know, got his wife off, and it's someone he knows loves him. But that's also the thing that's so, like, the mind bend about it, is that, like, Jamie is jealous, but, like, Claire's the one who should be jealous. You know, like, that's what's, I think as the reader, what's, like, the tough thing about it too, is that Lord John is never stealing Claire from Jamie as long as Jamie's alive. And that's why Lord John is, like, a tragic character to us in some ways, because I've said this, like, I passionately love Lord John, and I wish there was someone who he loved like he loves Jamie, so he could have that person. I just don't think he does. Claire's the one who really won with Jamie being back alive again, because she literally gets a second chance at her true love. Like, Lord John wins because, like, his friend is still alive, but it's just so hard. Like, Jamie doesn't see it that way because Lord John fucked his wife, but Jamie isn't in danger of losing his wife to Lord John, even though Lord John fucked his wife, right? Does that make sense? Do you guys get that? That's what's, like, and Claire gets that, but she isn't going to, like, keep ramming that home. She just wants Jamie to, like, stop being pissed at me. Like, I understand that the physical act of sex to you feels like cheating, but also, like, I didn't cheat on you. You were dead. Like, I can't cheat on a dead man. And it's different than what happened with Leary. It's different because he made Claire a cheater by not telling her he was married to Leary when he knew about it, right? And, like, she doesn't hold it against him that he had sex with other people when she was gone and was dead to him. She may be jealous of that, and it hurts her. She's mad that once she was back and they then started to be together, he didn't tell her, right? And that was a different type of jealousy, and that was wrong. Like, the two things aren't the same. But, you know, love and reason keep little company together. So that's why I love when they fight over that, because in my opinion, I think Claire's right when she says, you can't forgive me for this because I didn't do anything wrong. You can be hurt by it, but also I need you to stop punishing me over it at this point now. Please stop punishing me and our kids over it. Like, just stop. And please stop punishing John. Although John didn't help it by saying what he said in the way that he said and doing that. John kind of wanted to be punished for it. So that's his own thing. And he thought maybe he would take a punishment for it, right? But, like, you gotta let it go. So, anyway, again, Jamie is, as we would say, valid for certain parts of the feelings, but the part where he's holding a grudge, the part where he is saying he doesn't forgive her for it, he is being a bit ridiculous about it. So, let's move on a little bit here. In the book, some comparison, he does eventually write the letter directly to Jamie, asking, and yep, he still gets really angry. And Bree comes up with the idea about, they talk about smuggling it. Let's see what else. Okay, now the other big one to talk about here. So that was a book comparison that I think they get spot on. Those scenes were great, as always. That is some of the best acting, I think, that Sam and Kat do, because they are so tapped into, like, that journey of those characters. I love it. Love it. A thing they did a lot different. Okay, I don't know where they're going with this storyline, if it's done now from this or what. So, the babies. Not sure why we made this a black couple. I don't know. So in the book, I'll just tell you what it is in the book and just tell you how it's different and we'll move on. This couple is, I believe, an interracial couple is how it's described in here. It is a white woman and a Native American man, I believe is how I'm reading this in here. But they're definitely not a black couple because there is a little girl named Agnes, and she is described as having baby fine blonde hair tangled by the wind, and eyes that looked anxiously in every direction. And she comes to them at night. And so Claire and Jamie and the little girl actually have to go to the cabin because the mother can't leave. She's in so much pain. And they can't pay, and Claire's like, don't even worry about it, let's go. It says she was small and bony and very cold. And so they saddle up, and Jamie goes with, and it says her name is Miss Agnes. And so the reason why Jamie is there, so this was actually kind of interesting because in the show, I was like, why is Jamie in there while she's birthing these babies? Because they're at the ridge. They come to the ridge, and it's weird. Jamie's not there. The men would just not be there. The reason he's there in the book is because Claire needs to go, and it's the middle of the night, and he's like, my wife is not saddling up Clarence and going in the middle of the night anywhere. She's in her 60s. It's not happening, right? So he goes with, and that is why he's there for the birth, and, like, we'll see this magical thing that happens. You know, it makes sense because we have the surgery where it is, and you know, it's a little less of an echo of the situation that happened in, what is it, in book 5, where there's the birthing of the half black baby that happens in that one. But anyway, so they make it to this house, and there are the cloud trees, and let me find where to read this here. There's Aaron, Susanna, Agnes, William, and George, and let me see. I was going to read this part here. So you can tell it's an abusive house because we have it says, I turned to see a young Cherokee man standing in the flickering light of the doorway glaring at me. He was leaning on the doorframe, his long hair disheveled and blood on his shirt. I, sir, I said, and the midwife, do please go and sit down. Come here, Billy, Agnes said. Georgie, you too, come. Come, I said. So literally this woman who is super pregnant is trying to comfort her small children. Agnes is the one who went for help. And then, because I don't think that Aaron really had wanted her to. So her husband, I assumed that must be the man who had slapped Agnes, seemed to have gone outside and was talking into the night with a mix of Cherokee and English. So there's still the same really rough birth is the issue. So all that happens the same. She still does what she has to do to save the baby. And yes, so yeah, all of that's the same there. But yeah, it is not a black couple who's fearing of their freed status. So I don't know why we made that change. I mean, either way, I guess they wanted it to be a couple who is on the fringes of the ridge. In the book, we will see the cloud trees again. And they are in an uncomfortable position for being an interracial couple. I believe in the book, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I didn't have the time to fully scan through everything and I haven't looked ahead, but I believe like this woman had like left her family to be with this Cherokee man. And so that's why they're kind of living in a more poor area and he's a drunk. And so maybe they didn't want to depict him that way. I could understand. But yeah, instead we made it where Aaron Cloudtree was just in the show, was afraid for help because if you ask the white family for help, he fears for the freed status of his family. I could see that being the plot as well. But in the book, at least, we will see cloud trees again. So maybe we will in the show as well. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going to wrap up with the comparisons. There's one other thing I wanted to mention then. So I don't believe so directly that Jamie finds like a spy letter. I think he just starts to become aware that recruiting is happening and he's very upset about it. And, you know, Cunningham is like, he's like, what you gonna do about it though? Like, the loyalists are choosing me. You can choose my side or not. And it really will start to divide the ridge, and we're going to see even more of that coming up soon. I want to say, again, I think one of the differences is I think this Cunningham is very charming, and I like him. And I know not everyone is feeling that. Some people aren't. Like, I mean, he's not supposed to be perfectly likable because we still want to like Jamie better. And this man is ruining our peace again. Like, why does there always have to be these men coming in and trying to take what Jamie has built there? That is very frustrating. But I really like this actor. And I think that he just feels so likable. Like, you want to believe what he's saying. But he's right when he says that, like, you've been gone a long time. And then he opens the door and just lets Fraser leave. Like, it is uncomfy. It is uncomfy. So, yeah. As a rating wise, I thought this one was very good. Even the few changes I saw, I'm going to give this one an 8 for both accuracy and enjoyment. I thought it was really well done. I was locked into this one. It hooked me. I still, you know, they're gonna at some point have to answer the question of why would someone save someone's life? Because to me, I just want to remind us of this. And this came up in one of you lovely viewers commented this, what it means if Mother Hildegard and Raymond had something to do with Jamie and Claire, like, of faith being taken from them, okay? It means they lied to their faces, okay? Because the way that they did it in the show, let's go with the show first. The baby's already lost when Claire's dying and Raymond comes and heals her. She's the one who's ready to give up and die because her baby's been stillborn. Like, it's not clear at the beginning what's going on, but when Claire explains to Jamie when he gets out of the prison, she tells this, she backtracks to the baby is stillborn and she isn't letting the baby go. The baby's been dead for hours. Hours she's been dead. And then the king's mistress, I can't remember her name, comes and convinces Claire to hand her over. And then they take her away. Okay? Very different, at least from a medical perspective too, very different from a baby who has just come out and Claire is able to, you know, save this baby, right? Like, the baby was stillborn. She probably wasn't even born alive. Like, we just, you know, it's like, how much magic do you want to say? You know, like, Claire had even said, like, there were parts of the baby's body that weren't developed yet when she explains what she sees in the book and stuff like that. But when Raymond does magic on her, you know, it's been a few days. Like, she's dying of, like, childbed fever and from a broken heart and from giving up, and he heals her. So, you know, I guess whatever they're wanting us to think about the baby, like, that is a totally different thing, you know? Like, when Raymond comes to save her is days after, at least a few days after she's had the stillborn baby and the baby been taken away. Now, to reference the comment someone left on my video. Now, they, I don't remember if they were referencing the, I think they were referencing the show about what it would mean, but then I pointed out that they didn't do this in the show. But if we talk about the book, in Voyager, Jamie and Claire go back to France. They stop in France to meet with Jared before, you know, and to fill up the boat before they go looking for Fergus. In the show, they don't do that. They just rely on the fact that Jamie can't ever go back to France, which we did know that is true. He isn't supposed to ever go back there, or he could get in trouble. But it's been a long time, and they have him kind of sneak in, and Claire goes back to the Hôpital des Anges and leaves a flower on her child's grave, and she speaks to Mother Hildegard. Okay, there is a grave there for Faith at the Hôpital des Anges, or the whatever. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. I'm probably saying the wrong term, whatever. So Mother Hildegard would have had to lie to her face that her baby's not buried there. Okay, now again, that happens in the book. In the show, she never sees Mother Hildegard again. That is true. She doesn't see her again. But in the book, that would mean she lied to her face. Not only when she's, like, leaving there, not only when she comes back a few days after to get a entrance to see the king to get into the Star Chamber. And, you know, she knows she's going to have to fuck the king to get in there, to get her husband out. But also 20 years later when Claire stopped, because she does go there. I looked it up. It's literally happens in the book that they do stop by there. And she goes and leaves like a flower on the grave of Faith because she doesn't know that she ever will go back to there again. So, and Mother Hildegard's still alive. Like, that's the point. Like, she's still alive those years later. Very, very old, but still alive. So she would have, you know, lied to her face then. So, anyway, the person who commented on my video last would be like, whether she would have met her or not, because this person didn't remember that in the books, it would still mean this lovely woman we know from the show would have conspired, because there's no way Raymond is able to do that without her another nun's help. There's absolutely no way he could, because they're the ones who had the baby. Like, they had possession of the child, and she blessed the child and buried the child in the cemetery there illegally. Like, they're already not supposed to bury the stillborn baby's there. Like it was a big deal that she named the baby and buried the stillborn baby there. It was a gift to Claire. Like, it's a very emotional thing. And so if all of that is a lie, that is just almost too much to fathom, okay? I know I've been harping on this and everything, but I don't care. I won't let it go. It's my biggest gripe with this final season, that we're toying with these strings of things that are just don't need to be here. Like, there's enough other stuff to do. There's enough other stuff to do. And I stand by that if Diana herself, if this ends up being a storyline in the very final book, I don't know how I can handle it, because the Faith storyline and everything that happens there is some of the most heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, most beautiful stuff. And to have it be a lie, and to know that she would have not only then lived and not been with her parents, but have lived a tragic life and been murdered at sea, which, I mean, I guess it could all be a lie that she's not dead then, but nope, we don't even want to think about that. That is such a betrayal to me. It would literally ruin so much of the Outlander series as a whole, the books for me. If this is truly what Diana does, I can't put my mind in that place. I know I'm sounding dramatic to you, but if you've read these books like I have, if you're one of those people with me, you know how important the loss of Faith is to this couple, as it is to many people who have stillborn children in their lives and never forget them. They count them as their children. They are children to them. They will never forget them. They're their rainbow babies. They're their beloved children. And Jamie and Claire carry Faith with them forever. They dream of her. They wonder what she would be like now, what grandchildren they have of her, who her husband would be like. And to have that all be undone, all that longing and those heartache moments, to have that all be undone would be the biggest slap in the face. I would never forgive this book series. Like, I just wouldn't. So I'm already on, like, TV show, what the fuck are you doing? I just really gotta hope that that it's the biggest of red herrings, that they're fucking with us with it. Or that it is something we're missing a piece of what it really means, or something. Because I just can't believe that of them, and still enjoy this at the end of the day. Like, I don't care if I sound overly dramatic. It would ruin so much for me. So anyway, that's my final rant there. Thank you guys so much. Again, sorry for the chaos, the rosacea freaking out, the brain fog for some of it. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts, your rating for it. What do you think of this episode? I know I went on a rant about the other stuff, but I just wanted to address that comment because it was so what I was feeling, and they really touched on it, and I just love that stuff. So yes, looking forward to episode 4 and to see where we go. We got 7 episodes left to watch, so let's see what we got. Have a wonderful day, my friends. Bye-bye.